Welcome to Revenue Mind, where revenue leaders get real about mental health. I'm Julie. Stick around for honest stories, practical insights, and why well-being is the real bottom line. Let's dive in. Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Revenue Mind podcast, where revenue leaders talk all things mental health. I'm Julie, your host, and with us is Chris. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. It's been a road, but we got here.
Yeah, just a nice straight road, all going as planned.
Exactly. So the question that I kick off with, and it kind of leads the podcast, the direction, is what makes you you?
Wow, heady question. I feel like my answer to this has changed over time as I've learned who I am. And we do, this is from like feedback from my wife, from my kids, from my peers at work, 360 feedback. Today, I would describe myself as someone who is like very excitable, very optimistic, always looking for a path towards making something work instead of saying like, hey, I don't think this can work. Someone who I really value spending my time on things that I care about and with people I care about. And so like I love what I do every day, and I love solving hard problems with people that are really fun to solve hard problems with. And then I love just like I don't want to waste my time. And so I don't want to waste my time with people who give too much negative energy. I don't want to waste my time with people that aren't pushing me to grow. I don't want to waste my time when I could be spending time with my kids, my family. So yeah, I would say it's like a optimistic, excitable, looking for a path towards things that for how things can work. And I think the thing that I love the most about my job specifically is trying to creatively solve problems. Like that's what gives me energy.
That's amazing. Couple of questions that came up that when you were speaking. So, what if something doesn't work? Like you try, and you mentioned I'm a big puzzle person, so I love solving
Mhm.
puzzles. What if you can't fix it? What then?
I mean, the truth is a lot of stuff doesn't work. And so I think a lot of it is my mindset going in is, does this need to work now? Does this need to work eventually? Like what kind of not working are we talking about is the question. So I've written about this before. I think it's a good example is, Wistia is not your average tech company. Like we're not VC backed. We actually raise debt to buy out our angel investors. We've been around for 19 years at this point. We've tried a lot of different stuff. We've seen a lot of different trends and things shift and change. And for most of the business, we were video hosting and analytics platform. But a few years ago, we launched a webinar platform in like a full-fledged everything, registration, emails, like live stage, Q&A, polls, integrations into all the major everything, right? And when we decided to do that in 2021, we acquired a company that was doing webinars. We thought that was going to be the answer. We got going, started to integrate it in. We realized this is not the answer. We couldn't integrate it seamlessly enough in because it was different stack, different people. So we rebuilt everything. So you could look at that as like a failure. In some respects it was, in other respects it showed the company how serious we were about doing this. Then we set about building our own version of this, team on it, 9 people working for a while. Year later or so, we launch it. The first month we launch it, how many customers try it? 2. And did they keep using it? No. And then it was like the next month, how many customers tried it? 4. Did they keep using it? No. And I think there's a lot of months you would look in there and you would say, my God, like this is an abject failure. But if you were to go look at our numbers today, you'd be like, oh my God, this is a wild success. This thing is growing so fast. It's got so much attention, so much interest. The product is so good. And so I feel like I run into things that don't work all the time. And the question is it not working and we're hearing crickets? Is it not working and we're getting feedback? That's the first question I look at. If it's not working, we're getting crickets and no one cares, then yeah, that might be a failure and we should walk away from it. But if it's not working, but we're actually getting feedback, people only give you feedback if they care, and only the most engaged people give you feedback. So it's actually usually representative of a much larger group. So I really key in on that. And I always try to put things in perspective of the long term. So I have assumptions of where I think things can go in the long term. And then the question is the short term telling me that we're on the right path or not? And we might be failing royally, but if I believe we're on the right path, it's pretty easy for me to stay on it. But if we're failing and the feedback is there's no feedback, or it's like we're totally in the wrong direction, then I will reevaluate.
Yeah, that makes total sense. How did that during that time, how did that pressure affect you and your team?
Well, I've learned from doing this a long time that like you should only go after problems you want to work on for a long time. And it reframes failure completely, because if I need to have a ton of revenue from something in 3 months, first of all, it's really hard to predict the future. But secondly, like it is very often that will not be the case. So needing that is where the part that I would look at as zeroing in on. And I've just learned from making that mistake in the past of having expectations that were too short term and not recognizing how much work it really takes to make something great, to make people aware of it, to find your lane on what you can do that's so unique and so valuable to the market that they'll be delighted, they'll share it with others. And so yeah, I think it's just like there were definitely times when we had failure. Actually, it was probably looking back, there's things I can think of that I actually thought were failures and gave up on, and they weren't. That's a big one. Is like things that my expectation was this is going to 10x this year, and it didn't 10x, it 3x, and I'm like, oh, we failed. God, we suck. And it's like, no, we had an outrageous comparison we were making for ourselves that was self inflicted, and you go back and look, and like actually we were killing it. And the mistake we made was not real. It was not framing the challenge properly.
Oh, for sure. I was at Six Sense, just like kind of I was it was during the oh my gosh, the triple triple double double
Hmm.
for tech startups.
Hmm.
Whew. And now I feel like we've I don't know if we've calmed down, but we're but it's
Well, I think
yeah,
the expectations for the AI first businesses is like
exactly.
quadruple,
It's moved
quadruple,
on.
quadruple,
Yeah.
and it's moved on to this, and it's like, look, if you're thinking about everything from the perspective of a venture investor, yeah, the whole model only works with the power law exceptions, right? Like that's the only way you get a return, and so it's like you need to model and push for like what those exceptions are, but 99% of companies are not going to be that. So what do you do if you're not that is the question. And that's where it gets into like, how are you funded? How are you set up? How do you maintain on the problem? Like what goals are you trying to set yourselves up for? And it's just a different game, right? It's like it's reframing the rules, I think is what you have to do so that you can play a game that you can actually win. And for most people, it's probably not the triple, 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 double, double.
Did you have initial expectations, like, when you first started Wistia
Oh yeah.
that what were they, and how did they hurt and or help you?
I mean, at the very, very beginning, it was just me and my co-founder Brendan. We had no clue about funding or anything. So we were a year out of college. We both had some savings, and we're really lucky. Like my dad was a professor of computer science at Brown, and he was given an option like before I was born. Does he want to pay for his own health insurance? And if he does that, then Brown will cover the college tuition of his children, or they will pay for his health insurance, but there it won't be like this tuition benefit. And he made that decision before I was born. I have two older siblings. And because of that, I was able to go to college and not have debt. And so unbelievable decision. By the way, if he hadn't had four children, it wouldn't have worked out. So but it worked out. And that meant that like after a year of work, I was able to save up something. My co-founder was in a similar position. And so when we started Wistia, we thought we had enough money to survive for 6 months. So our plan was start it, do it, and then either 6 months in, we would sell the business as we ran out of money, or we would just, if we felt that it was like we couldn't do that, it was just failure, we'd just tell no one that we tried because we were embarrassed by the idea of failure. And that was the strategy. That was the plan. And then as we got into it, it turned out that like it was both harder than I ever could have imagined, but also much more fun than I could have imagined, easier to keep doing. We had modeled our living expenses. We lived way cheaper than we thought we were going to. And it made us survive to getting about a year in, which is when we got our first paying customer. And because our expenses were so low, within like a year and a half, we were actually covering all our expenses. And that was not expected. It was not rocket ship growth. Although I think in hindsight, it was one of those things, kind of what we're talking about before with failure, is like the first month we figured out what Wistia could be, we got one customer and they're paying $400 a month. And the second month, we got our second customer and they were also paying $400 a month. And the third month, we got our third. So it's one customer a month, 30-ish days a month. You're not getting customers. It sucks. But actually, the industries, the customers, they really loved the product. They stuck around forever. They weren't canceling. They were telling other people. And so I think actually, if you were to look at that, looking at it in hindsight, it happened pretty quickly that we got really big brands trusting us, found what our product was, started to find our way towards the business model. So yeah, it was very cool. And even what we do today is just like an evolution of those early insights.
So throughout your time at Wistia, you mentioned 19 years, I think. What was your experience with learning how to balance as a
Work life
founder? It's
balance.
really tough.
Yep.
Yeah. And if you burned out or when you burned out, or if you still burn out, how do you handle it?
I've never burned out, but I would say I have spent a lot of effort trying to get my work life balance set up. And the moment that it shifted, so we had this moment a little more than 10 years in where we had the opportunity to sell the business. And I mean, SaaS companies, people are always poking around, private equity, stuff like that. But we had three companies try to buy us at the same moment. So my co founder and I took it seriously and we got into the whole process. We got pretty close to selling, like real close. There's a long story there. But when we were sitting there saying, what would we do if we sold? And we're like, we're going to have all this money. We're not going to have Wistia anymore. What are we going to do? And so we're like, well, we love working together. We think we have a unique partnership. We'd start another company. Okay. This is in like 2017. We're looking at how video is changing. We've seen two major shifts happen with video since we started the business. The first one was DSLRs, which didn't exist when we started. So that made it, DSLRs added support for video, which made it so that the budgets of videos dropped tremendously and they would still look really good. And then mobile phones added video. And that was the second big shift we saw. And we thought there were going to be more shifts like this, like computers being like thinking, looking at your computer as a camera. And we're recording a remote podcast right now on our computers. This is not something people were doing in 2017. And so we were like really excited about that. So we're like, okay, if we're going to start another business, it's going to be in the video space. Which customers we'd focus on? Well, we thought small, medium-sized businesses because we know those customers well. We go through the whole list of things, basically realized we'd rebuild Wistia if we were to sell. So that made us think, hey, this is something must be wrong. And what, or else we wouldn't want to sell. And it caused me and my co-founder to admit to each other that there was something wrong. We actually weren't having fun. And we had been running the business leading up to this, kind of like a growth at all costs mode. We'd switched into that mode. We were running at a loss. We had a million projects going on. A lot of things were not working. We were unhappy. And we were working around the clock trying to make this work. And we basically realized that we could fix the business. And to fix the business, we had to start saying no to more things. We had to be more clear about the bets we were going to stay on versus the ones that were like fleeting. And it was in that moment that I remember talking to my wife, and she's like, honey, you've been telling me forever, like all this work is going to lead up to an exit someday. And she's like, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to just keep doing this forever? And so I changed my mentality after the buyback that was like, all right, I need to pretend I sold the business. What would I do? It's like, well, if I sold the business, like I'd take real vacations. If I sold the business, I would actually like in the day to day, I'd be more willing to delegate and give more to other people and stuff like that. And so it really changed my approach. And I started taking real vacations, and I started realizing that like me working around the clock, there was not going to be the difference between more productivity or not at Wistia. It was going to be like, do people believe in where we're going? And so made a ton of changes that really changed my ability to have a great work-life balance. And I would say I now do. And I still work a lot. I just work on things I love working on that give me energy versus taking it away. I'm very present with my kids. I look at it as like work is going to be stressful, but that's not bad. Like stress makes you stronger. Like the equivalent from like I think working out actually is that you stress your muscles, you lift, you get stronger. If you don't recover, you never make gains. Like this whole secret that everybody talks about today about getting in great shape is actually about recovery. And so I think the same thing is true at work. Like if you don't have recovery built into the system, you can't get better. But if you do, then it's okay. You can stress yourself. You can recover from the stress. Ultimately, you can handle more stress and it makes it much easier day to day to manage all the stuff that's going on. There's this great book called The Art of Learning by Josh Waitzkin, and he was like a chess grandmaster person at like a young age and did all these other wild things. And he talks about the connection between physical stress and emotional stress and how they're connected. And so what's happened in chess is that, these people sit down there and they spend 7 hours a day like battling each other and they burn like some, crazy number of calories just by thinking, right? And people eventually figured out these folks figured out that if they actually work out, like actually go for runs and other things, their capacity to manage the stress is the same system. So they can manage more stress in the games and therefore they perform better. And so physical and mental stress are connected. And so a huge unlock for me on this is like, I work out every day. It's the first thing I do. It gives me tons of energy, but it literally helps me manage more stress. And so the total threshold of what I'm dealing with is below most days. There could be quote unquote stressful things happening at Wistia, and I they don't have a hugely taxing effect on me.
With the work-life balance that you were talking about, do you believe that it prevented you from burning out? Because you mentioned you didn't haven't burned
Yeah, oh,
you
I think
out.
so. I think that it's kind of like if you just never give yourself the time to recover, you're done. So I just think you have to bake it in. And that is the secret, right? It's like if you think, "Oh, I'm just going to go 60 days straight." It's you're not you lose the productivity you think you're getting. Like it's just there's a reason why almost every US president has somehow been able to find the time to work out. Like why is that? Is it that it's like supposed to be the most stressful job on earth? And it's well, people know that like it's not just about you, it's about the people around you. I mean, I mentioned delegation too. I really think a huge part of this is like if you have a team around you that gives you a lot of energy, a lot easier to keep going, much easier to not burn out. If people are actually taking control of like those big problems and dealing with them, and then they're finding people to help them, you have a system that works together. And so nobody is in the at risk of being really burnt out. But you have to take care of yourself. It's like I think about the oxygen mask thing on planes a lot because until I was a parent, I didn't understand why it was like, hey, you'd think the instinct would be put the oxygen mask on your kid first versus yourself. But you actually have to put it on yourself because if you are not there as the adult to take care of them, then you're screwed. And I feel like this is the same thing here, which is like you have to take care of yourself and actually be selfish about your own self-care. And then when you're doing that, if you're in a good place, much easier to be a great parent, much easier to be a great leader. You just show up better
For sure, and speaking of parenting, how many kids do you have?
too.
Oh, that's so sweet. I have a brother. We're 2.5 years apart.
Yeah, that's similar to my kids.
Yeah, I feel like it's a good balance. I was curious, how did becoming a parent change your perspective on mental health?
I mean, I think the thing that has changed is kids see how you act and show up as like that's what they take from you. It's you can tell them, hey, don't use the screen, whatever. And if I'm using a screen, well, I say that, they see it instantly and they see that as like that's important to me. And so I think a lot of it is modeling just really, really matters as a parent. Like that is most of parenting is modeling. And so you have to show up the best way that you can. And I don't mean to be happy all the time. I actually mean when I'm dealing with something that is stressful, when I'm doing something that's really sad, like actually talking about it, because I would want them to talk about it. And I want them to feel comfortable having those emotions and not feeling like shame around those things. And so just so much of parenting for me comes back to how do you model this for your kids? And I think model the range of emotions, model your own ability to try to take care of yourself, not, and yeah, like have expectations for yourself that are similar to the expectations for them. And so I don't know, you just can't really fake it, I think, is the thing.
Kids are very observant.
They're unbelievably observant, unbelievable. Yeah.
I
And
do have
and
kids, but
yeah, but it's also like their memory, the percentage of their life, like something that can happen to me that doesn't feel like a big deal as someone who's now 41, like what, I have a bad day, someone slips and gets hurt, stung by a bee. Like, well, a kid, the percentage of their life that that bee sting represents a much greater percentage. And the fact that they got stung 7 months ago in this exact moment, they really remember it and think about it. And it's like a defining thing. And so to me, it's also just having little kids. It's so much of it is is just how you show up. It's basically that simple. Which to make the connection to work, I think is actually incredibly similar to how you lead, right? Like it's modeling. If I show up and I always start meetings late, people will be comfortable starting meetings late. If I never start meetings late, but I always ask about how people are doing in their lives, everyone will do it. It's this unbelievable ripple effect that occurs, which is actually why I think when we evaluate leaders, we try to evaluate their basic morals and their basics of how they show up, because we implicitly know that that has such a huge impact on what happens in an organization.
so it could be a Wistia value or your own value, but what value do you think you connect with the most? Just kinda like in general.
Oh man, that's really tough. I would say like creative optimism. I love finding a path through challenges to take something that could be bad and turn it into something good. I find that very rewarding. So it could be anything. Like I can remember the early days of Wistia. We made some mistake technically, and people's videos were not working for some period of time. I can't remember how long. And the instinct was, should we tell people or not? And a lot of people would be like, well, most people didn't notice, so don't tell them. Like, we made a mistake, but they didn't notice, don't tell them. And I remember we're like, well, some people did notice, and those people are going to think that this is like acceptable. So what if we actually tell everybody and we're really direct and honest about what went wrong and how we're changing, and then also we were really figuring out what our brand was at that moment. So like, can we have fun in that communication, which doesn't seem like a good idea, doesn't seem like it's a good moment to have fun as when you made a mistake. But we followed our instincts and did it, and it ended up being like incredibly engaging response from the customers. This is why we love you so much, and all this stuff is like, okay, we took a bad thing and we flipped it from being bad to really really good. And that's like an addicting idea for me, is what is the challenge that we have that we can flip around and turn it into a positive. And I think also, like a lot of hard things, the only way to get through them, or if you're trying to build something that's hard to build, it's often taking all these different pieces that are working and plugging them together in one or two specific ways that actually delivers on the promise of what you're trying to do. And so that I find that to be a fun puzzle to work on, but I think it requires a lot of creativity and it requires a lot of optimism that you are capable of getting these things done. And so I guess that's where I came up with that. I don't know.
It is super unique. That's awesome. It also kinda reminded me of integrity and honesty, those values too, especially with the email. And it's funny, at a company, I did the exact same thing, and it was such a positive response. It's like, "We effed up."
Yeah,
We're
totally.
human. It's it's and you make it and you turn around. That's really, really cool. How did you make or how do you use creative optimism? Like, did you use that beginning of Wistia? Did you kinda learn it as you went along, or is that more now, or, like, what was that journey like?
I think I've always had that in me. And it took a few years to trust it in building Wistia. I think the beginning was very much like trying to copy what I thought a company was. And the expectations of what a company is, doing things because you see other companies doing it, other people, things in the culture. It was finding our way and ultimately finding things that actually worked. A lot of this, I think, is trying to get to like base level instincts and first principles of how someone responds to something, and then trusting that and using that to help guide you when like things are murky. And so what I mean by that is like, so I'll go back to the webinar product. So we launched the webinar product slowly but surely every month. More people want to try it. And I look at that, I'm like, well, if they want to try it, there must be a reason. So why is it? Is it that there's a problem with their existing thing? Is it they've never done webinars? Is it that they really like Wistia and are wondering if the Wistia version of this will be good? And so you go in with this premise and go try to talk to those people directly and try to understand and like really listen to their feedback, and then go the layer beneath the feedback you got, and more and more and more and more. And it's this discovery process of trying to establish the first principles of like why someone would actually look at this and why they would care. And then over time, you build a stronger and stronger picture by doing that as to what their needs really are, why they really are signing up, what things we can really help them with, which is now influencing all the new stuff we're building into the roadmap and how we're reprioritizing features, how we talk about them, how we bring them out. And this collective learning like starts happening. And I mean, it's kind of the same exact thing, I guess, in terms of like, how can we fit together the things we're really good at doing, the things we've already built, the things we want to build next, and build a path towards making something that really resonates. And, you start doing that enough, you build enough trust in yourself, it becomes easier and easier to do it. Everyone on that team starts to have stronger and stronger instincts of what to build. And it just snowballs into this like success. And I think it's like I don't know, I've seen this happen a lot where we'll have a team put them on a hard problem, and it's very hard to predict when they have a breakthrough, but usually at some point they have a breakthrough. And then once they have a breakthrough, the question is why? And then if they get the why right, they have another breakthrough and then another one. And then suddenly a very high percentage of the things they're doing are working, and it looks kind of effortless. And it's the opposite. It's like a huge amount of work, but it is taking this approach into how you build new things.
That's awesome. The thing I resonate with is almost like not the root of the problem, but the root of the solution,
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's right.
and going kind of down the 5 whys, and then once you figure out the formula, there you go.
Yeah.
I also feel like when you're talking about product launches, I feel like in general, they kind of fail because we don't really listen to the people that matter the most.
Yeah, I think if you're not listening, you don't use the language that other people are using already. Also, I think it's like the most normal graph of a product launch is spike in interest, big old drop. And then the question is like, where does it come back to? Like after a bunch of people made aware to it, did you change the trajectory? Like, are more people doing it or not? Like, and I think even admitting that is important, because that first launch is important. But I actually think the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth touch points, those are ones that really add up. It's like, oh, they're still on this. Oh, they've improved in a way I thought they might improve it. Oh, I'm seeing it in more places now. And in a way, it's exactly what you're saying. It's like getting to like why this solution matters for a group. And then can I just put enough signal out to you that like you are the right group and this solution is what you were looking for. And when you get that right, things take off.
Why do you think Wistia worked? And did you have some sort of either perspective or that corny saying superpower, or, why do you think it worked and why do you think it took off?
I think Wistia worked because we ended up being right that there was about to be a huge shift in how online video was used. I mean, that was the biggest thing. We saw YouTube happening. We thought this is going to completely change online video. I had done film before Wistia, not for long, but I had done it. And I had tried to be a part of online filmmaking communities. They never took off. And it just seemed like, hey, this technology is not going to be limited to one company. And so we were right about that. And then when we first got our first paying customers, it was helping businesses who are not experts in video use video. They found that very valuable. And that also turned out to be really important and true. Still true today. It's still exactly what we're focused on. So I think we got those things right. We we were very wrong on the timing. Like we thought things would happen really, really fast. And there are things that took like 7 or 8 years to happen in terms of the amount of adoption, the price that people would, how much people would use video in different parts of their business, the price of making videos, expectations of video, all that stuff. Like a lot of that, we were really wrong on the timing, but really right that they happened. And so part of it is just the way we were funded. Like if we had raised venture capital in the early days, we would have been overcapitalized for what was actually occurring. And we have tons of customers that went out of business for that reason. Not customers, we had tons of competitors who went out of business because they were overcapitalized and they couldn't get the revenue that they needed for the amount of money they raised. So being small was an advantage. Being patient was an advantage. Our funding model was an advantage. And then I think we just didn't get bored. I think that's the other thing is I'm a big believer that most people overestimate how quickly they will find success. But then if they actually do find success, they underestimate how far they can take it. And I think in our case, we just got lucky that we didn't screw up the culture. We were really judicious with hiring. And so we built this like core of strong talent, even when we were 10 people, that was so strong that it made other great people want to work with us, made it easier for us to keep the quality high of what we were doing across the business. And I think if we had gotten that wrong, like if we had hired too rapidly, I was so immature in terms of a leader. I think it would have been very painful. If in some ways, I think if the success had come too quickly, it would have blown up. And it was the fact that it took a while, the fact that we cared about culture, the fact that we got the right people, the fact we're in the right markets. You put that all together, and I think that's why it worked.
That's a great formula. That's awesome. And it sounds like it wasn't easy to discover.
No, no, it was not easy. I mean, if you had, I've said a few times publicly, like, if you had told me what Wistia was going to be 5 or 6 years in, I probably wouldn't have done it. Because, I think it was kind of that same thing with those wild expectations I was talking about earlier. But 5 years in, I think we were maybe 4 million in revenue or something. And I can't, that number might be wrong, but it was something in that order of magnitude. And I remember thinking before when we made all our financial models, it was like, oh, we raised the first round, just 2 years in, we're going to be at 30 million in like 2 years. It's like, that's what we thought, that's what was going to happen. And so if you told me it's going to be insanely hard, the team is going to be super small, and it's like going to be this modestly successful at this time, I would have been like, I don't think this is going to be worth it. But the fact was, we got to that moment. It was really fun. We were able to keep doing it, and you just keep compounding. And so it's kind of that simple. Yeah. So that's why it's interesting to go back and think about. But
For sure.
yeah.
I think the question I want to end on, what about you do you think made Wistia work?
I mean, I think so as I mentioned before, my dad was a computer science professor. My older brother worked in tech. My older sister, her ex-husband, worked in tech, and pretty early in tech, it's a big companies. And I basically grew up in like an early adopter household. So I can remember the Bose Wave radio came out. It's like this tiny little radio, incredible quality sound. My dad was like, we have to go get this. And we got like the day it came out, we brought it home. We talked about it. We talked about how good it was. We talked about the implications of it. I got to like beta test the flight simulators from Microsoft. I got to play with the Xbox early, all these, and it was this constant like testing and discussing and trying and playing. And so I think I was like accidentally raised to be like an early adopter, and maybe that was just my instinct. I don't know, but like I just was. And I think that has been quite helpful in building the company, is like that approach. And it comes back to that kind of creative optimism of like, what can this thing become? And then I think I knew the customer from the beginning. I was the customer. I was like, I had made a bunch of videos. I had been editing feature-length movies. I had been a producer on some documentaries. And like, I understood how painful the old world of the tech was. And Even now, I still am the customer. I make tons of videos. I am on social media all the time making videos. I host my own podcasts. I am looking at the performance. I'm evaluating. I'm talking about the intersection between the creative stuff and the science, like the art and science together, and what great marketing looks like. And I enjoy doing it. It's one of the things I do a lot, and I think that that's just that stuff has helped a lot, is being really really close to it. And then I think a lot of the other stuff I just learned along the way. It's just like trial by fire. It turns out I enjoy that, and I'm not sure everybody does, but it's been fun for me, and so I think that's probably how I have impacted things. I don't know. It's a hard question to answer.
No, it was a great answer. My opinion, I feel like the best ideas are when you build something that you wish you had.
Yes. Yeah. We talk about that internally as like be your own best customer. You make different stuff when you're going to actually use it.
So thank you so much. If people have questions, like how should they contact you?
Yeah. Best way to find me is on LinkedIn. Chris Savage on LinkedIn. You can find my podcast, Talk to a Lot with Chris Savage, where I interview entrepreneurs and builders and stuff about what it takes to make a great brand, a great product. And yeah, you can also just email me. You can find my email online. I won't say it here. But yeah, thank you for having me. This is super fun.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much. That's a wrap for Revenue Mind, where we cut the BS and spotlight mental health and revenue leadership. I'm Jolie, reminding you your mindset is your competitive edge. Thanks for listening. See you next time.